All right, everybody, it's time for your favorite podcast. It's time for Survival of the Fittest is the soup du jour. I'm Roberto Treviño, and I'm going to share with you some exciting stuff today. We happen to be at Hourglass Brewery here in the Hourglass District in Orlando. This area in the last couple of years has really, maybe 2 or 3 years, I'd say has really come of age, where there's just more restaurants coming in, more really nice bars and these breweries and coffee houses and hip barbershops and you name it. This area has become like that spot where the, young people come, all people really, all ages, but certainly has that really heavy-duty Orlando cool vibe to it, and certainly the fact that it has so many beers. I had to come say hi to these guys and enjoy some beers and, of course, our podcast here, Survival of the Fittest is the soup du jour. So I have a couple of things I wanted to talk about today, and I want to talk about the story of the two chorizos. Now, you have classic traditional Spanish chorizo, which is definitely different from the chorizo used in Mexico. Now, chorizo in Spain has garlic, pimenton, which is a smoked paprika, the garlic, of course I said, and the casing, but it's usually cured. It's dried, it's aged. It's a harder sausage when the chorizo in Mexico has similar ingredients, but definitely says Mexico. It's got the cumin, the garlic, a touch of like the chili powder maybe, paprika of some sort, and it's not cured and dried, even though it is encased, like in a casing, just like the Spanish chorizo, it's left soft. So it's served almost fresh, not cured, not aged at all. And it's definitely very, very different. And a lot of people say to me, like, well, chorizo. Not the case. Not the case, because there are two different tales to be told about these different chorizos. Now, I'm only mentioning this because I've been making a lot of paellas lately, and someone suggested I use Mexican chorizo, and I kind of thought that would be sacrilegious to the paella itself. Not because it's not a good chorizo and then it wouldn't work. It would work. Oh, definitely. And if you wanted to kind of go there, you could, but it's not the same thing. So definitely, if you want to experiment with the two, I suggest you do. But remember, they're going to have totally different cooking applications. The cured chorizo from Spain can be just sliced and eaten right like that. The chorizo from Mexico needs to be cooked because it is a raw, fresh product. Okay? So don't be mistaken. You cannot eat the Mexican chorizo crudo, como dicen en Latinoamérica, ¿verdad? So definitely keep that in mind when you are out in search of chorizo, or you happen to read a recipe that requires that you use chorizo. Remember what I'm telling you here today. Greetings to all our friends from New York to California, from Texas to Puerto Rico. I mean, I tell you what, we are definitely getting like all kinds of messages from people that are really from across the country, which is exciting. So thank you very much to everybody who's staying connected with us here in Soup du Jour, and really kind of adding to the whole thing. Because, one thing's for sure. Too many chefs spoil the soup, but a lot of ingredients make it better. So everyone who joins us and has anything to add to the podcast, we welcome it, because we believe that's what's going to give this a lot of life. Now, like I said, I've been doing a lot of paellas lately. It's one of those things that I've always enjoyed cooking. There's technique involved. There's time. You have to let your rice cook. Your caldo has to be perfect. I like to use chicken feet to make, or talons to make my stock. Now, the chicken feet tend to release an incredible amount of gelatin. And one thing I've noticed, that when you are cooking with the chicken stock made with the chicken feet, it just kind of tends to thicken things up because of the amount of gelatin. And when you're making like paella with this particular stock, and it starts to kind of cook down, and the rice starts to absorb the stock, the gelatin sort of sticks to the top of the rice, and it gives it a real authenticity. Now, there's people who say, like, nah, I just like to use a little salty water. I like to use a chicken base. I use fish, whatever the case. I recommend you look into this. And whenever you're going to make soup or anything, go ahead, go to your butcher, ask for some chicken feet, boil them for about 40 minutes, strain them, and save that stock in your freezer. It'll coagulate, it'll coagulate and get really like gelatinous, where you can actually slice it and keep little cubes of it in your freezer and then toss it into your soups or your anything you want. And I absolutely think it's really such an interesting ingredient because of the richness that the talon or the chicken claws or the chicken feet give to your stock. So there's another little tip for y'all. Definitely look into it. I've noticed some people even roast the chicken feet before they cook them, before they boil them in the water to make the stock, give them a little more flavor. I don't like that because I think you actually lose some of the gelatin when you're cooking them in the oven. So I liked it all in there, and I think, just reduce it, and something that you should definitely look into. It's one of those things that makes paella, I think, in my book, delicious. Not to mention the pimentón. Again, I mentioned pimentón when I was talking about this chorizo. It's a smoked paprika. And, a lot of people will sell you pimentón. A lot of people will sell you just paprika or Hungarian paprika But el pimentón de España is literally, the chilies are smoked before they're dried and ground up to make the paprika. And it has an intense smoky flavor and smell to it. You can literally open up the jar or your tin, wherever you buy it. It usually comes in a little tin, especially if it's from, Pimentón de la Vera in Spain, then it's definitely in a tin. And you open that up, and it immediately fills the surrounding area with a great smoky, just aroma that just is, to me, it says España. El pimentón, the smoked paprika, is really the kind of thing that I'm always looking for when I walk into a Spanish deli, or whenever you walk into any bar in Madrid, it has that smell. So, not to mention all the alcohol and everything. Speaking of alcohol, I'm drinking a dark beer here from or Hourglass Brewery, which is really good. I'm enjoying it. We always have the Orlando Brewing on hand, but today we kind of are on a field trip, so here we are. And it's delicious. So, definitely, listen, another thing I've been thinking about here in Orlando is the lack of kitchen staff everywhere. It's crazy. I know I've been telling everyone, hey, join us over here. We're looking for people. And I mean it. It has been so rough lately in the kitchens without kitchen staff. And I mean, usually when you have like 6 dudes, you have to deal with 4. 4 cooks and maybe 1 chef and 1 sous chef. And that's not uncommon. But the fact that it's so tight, in a way, it's good. I mean, for me personally, that I enjoy cooking. So, I'm always cooking. This has kind of forced us to just sort of like really put it down right in front of you, man. You got to crank out this food, and, a lot of restaurants on I-Drive, a lot of restaurants, in a lot of the suburbs here in Orlando, they have these incredibly busy restaurants. Hey, it's not uncommon for a restaurant in Orlando to do 600 to 1,200 covers. And the really, really busy places sometimes exceed 2,000 covers in an entire day. That's serious, and I don't mean talking about money. I'm talking about just the work required to get that kind of food out. And it's been challenging, to say the least, but certainly not the worst-case scenario, because as a chef, I think I enjoy that intensity. I enjoy that extreme feeling that having to put out all this food and you just cannot fail. These are the things that always filled me, made me excited about going to work. And at my age and the years I've been cooking, I tell you what, it's kind of rejuvenating. It's like juveneciéndome. Tú sabes, to go back to like being forced to just constantly cook and work hard, and I feel great. So definitely kind of eye-opening moment, past the corona, the Rona, past the post-Rona reality that we're all living in. And again, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm really thinking that there's going to be a sort of another level of food renaissance. Not only in Orlando, and I believe in every city in America. Certainly Puerto Rico is still battling, with the government sort of like, curfew on restaurants and stuff. But I know the chefs in Puerto Rico, and I know they're just all like revving to go and make things happen again for tourism. And, I think we're ready to start flying again soon. I think things are looking like they're coming back. You go to a lot of places now, and there's no mask required anymore. And yeah, we're all very excited about that. But I will tell you this. It's definitely bringing a renaissance of good food back to everybody. And I think, when I had pizza a couple nights ago, and it was so good. The crust was just burnt. It was one of these fire oven pizzas, and the crust was just burnt in all the right spots that just gave it a great flavor and literally burnt. You might say, like, well, that doesn't sound appetizing. But you know what? It's one of those things that I think that makes the difference in a pizza. When you get those burn spots and it has enough, yeast that it becomes a bubbly type, like crust. And those bubbles burn. Well, that's what I'm talking about. And those are the flavors that I'm just like in search of. And that's what's happening when you can go to a pizza place and it becomes almost a standard that they're looking for those flavor profiles. That says renaissance to me. When you go to a Mexican restaurant and they're pushing it, they're pushing to bring you really authentic cheeses and flavors. That says renaissance to me. When you see new criollo restaurants opening in Orlando to serve the community here, and not only is it una fondita criolla. No, I'm talking about a beautiful restaurant. I recently had some secret photo shoot of the new Cilantrio opening up at the Florida Mall, and it looks amazing. And it's great to see that happening because it says to me, restaurant renaissance. And this is what I'm talking about. I see, I spent some time on iDrive, and I see all the restaurants packed. I see tourism coming back. I see locals enjoying a place like iDrive, which is really kind of an exciting part of Orlando, if you ask me, because it's got all the lights and the action, and many places to eat. Again, it says renaissance to me. Restaurant, food, renaissance. And that, we all can be very happy that, hey, listen, the Rona was not easy, but if it is going to allow restaurants and chefs to push themselves and want to kind of get back in their kitchens and do exciting things for their guests, then you know what? It was what had to happen for us to continue to just say, I'm living, I'm alive, I'm good, this is wonderful, and restaurants always confirm that. I think whether you go to your favorite bar and it's full of people, like this place is actually getting pretty full. It says, this is what it's all about. This is what I'm looking for. Now, this place, Hourglass Brewing, is very cool. And why? It used to be a church. Nothing to me. I mean, when it used to be a church and it becomes a bar, a brewery with tons of beer and wildness, it's just kind of like, it used to be a church, and it's got all the beams and the high ceilings, and it's very cool. We're actually seated here towards the back of the restaurant or the brewery, and it looks like it's where maybe the priest would set up, their sermon for the day and have their wine and do their thing before they came out and would go out and preach. So it's kind of cool, it's got a funky feeling to it, which I'm always hip on. I like funky places, so this is definitely one of them. And it's definitely Orlando. This whole area around here in the Hourglass District has this sort of mid-century feel to it. It has that sort of feeling of 1950s America. The architecture, at least the architecture and the roads and stuff, the trees and everything just got that feeling. And even though we're in 2021, heading right into 2022 before you know it, it still has that classic Americana to it, and that it's become a hip spot, that it's getting all these really cool restaurants and stuff. It's just that much hipper. It's that much cooler for me. And so that's definitely the Hourglass District here in Orlando. I push Orlando a lot because it's one of those cities that I think is underserved, if you will, by people. People don't, they always talk about Miami. You talk about Florida, oh, we were in Miami. Yeah, Miami is great and all, but Orlando has a certain charm about it. When you start driving through Thornton Park, or you start driving to the older neighborhoods in Winter Park, or you go, it's just a charm to it. These huge oak trees in these brick cobblestone streets, these brick roads, it's just so cool. And so I definitely push Orlando. I think it's one of those cities that it's great to live in. I enjoy it a lot. And I've lived in great places. Obviously, Puerto Rico is a very big place in my heart. I still have properties over there, and I go as often as possible because, yo siento que Puerto Rico es casa. Even though I have family in Texas, I have family in California, I have family all over the place, I still think Puerto Rico is like where my home is. And I like that about it. But, Orlando has become like, and forgive me for saying this, a lot of people might take this the wrong way, pero es una colonia de Puerto Rico. You come here, it's a colony of Puerto Rico because so many Puerto Ricanos, so much Puerto Rico culture coming around and doing its thing here that, it makes it comfortable for me. One who loves the island, one who loves San Juan, feels comfortable in Orlando. That's a great thing. Now they're setting up for their trivia here, which is going to be exciting because, I've always thought the trivia was fun, I always kind of like to shout out the answers to things, and usually I'm wrong. That's okay, though. It's also very dog-friendly. There's all kinds of dogs in here as well, which is cool because everyone who knows me knows I'm a dog guy, Luna and Cappy are always in the podcast. Today they're not. They're actually back in Lake Nona enjoying the view. But, yeah, this is definitely a nice change of pace for me. The beer, flows as usual, so I'm feeling righteous. And how sweet it is indeed. Let's see, everybody. Someone recently asked me about what I thought was going to be the next big cuisine. And, that's a tough one to answer because, everyone has their favorite cuisine that they're going to say, well, I remember when I was a kid, it was Southwestern cuisine. And, of course, there was always, the French have always done their thing. And Italian food never, as I mention all the time, never loses its place. But what is the next big thing? Mexican food, there for sure. Mofongo definitely made its mark. I'd have to say the last 5 years, people have discovered mofongo. But what is the next big food? Well, I think it might be, once again, heading to Southeast Asia. I just think it's a very elegant and sophisticated food, and I'd like to see more of it. Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian, I don't mind any of those. I would love to see more of those restaurants find their place in our community so we could dine there. So that's what I'm going to think. I think it's Southeast Asia is going to be the next big food. I think also Indian is going to make a huge splash soon. It's one of those things that, I enjoy Indian, and certainly has enough spice and certainly has enough variety to serve people, different kinds of flavors and different kinds of, things that people look for in food, like pungent flavors, spicy, seeds, different things that you would use to give things flavors. I think Indian food is up there as well with Southeast Asian. Anything from the subcontinent, whether it be from Goa or Northern Indian. I think these are the next big food crazes. And And I'm a big fan. I love Indian food. I can't get enough. And I think there's just not enough Indian restaurants in Orlando. There's a few, and they're good, but we need more. So if anyone's out there who knows how to cook Indian food or wants to open an Indian restaurant, I'd say come to Orlando and do your thing because we need definitely more Indian restaurants. All right, so let me think. Another sip of beer here so I can continue to enjoy the surroundings here at at Hourglass Brewing. The high ceilings, the dogs, the people. Very Orlando, very cool. Let me enjoy this beer for 1 second. Well, there you go, you see? Hey, all right, our bartender's been awesome. He just keeps bringing us more and more beers. You know, one thing about doing a podcast or bringing in cameras or anything to any restaurant anywhere, right away people get really lit up. They really get excited about it. So definitely start bringing you beers, and this is good. So thank you very much, sir. Beers are on the money, bro. Ice cold and delicioso. Pues ya saben, I tell you, one thing I want to make clear to everybody is we are pumped up. The podcast is taking off. We're getting a lot of people listening now. Thank you very much for that. I love it. I'm glad to be in the kitchens cooking for everybody once again. I think that it's right. We're living very good times, so enjoy life. Don't hold back. Do your thing, do it well, and enjoy yourself because you know what? Someday, it's all over. So once again, everybody, remember, survival of the fittest is in the soup du jour. I'm Chef Roberto Treviño. It's been a day of salt and pepper, a day of talking about exciting new foods coming at you, and a realization that we're here and we're absolutely excited to be part of the post-Rona reality that we're living. So remember, once again, I'm going to say it again. Survival of the fittest is the soup du jour. I'm Chef Roberto Treviño, and I will see you, hear you, and be with you soon. Salud a todo mundo.